Ever bought a bag of grapes bitten into one and found yourself staring at those little seeds, wondering if you could actually grow your own grapevine from them? Maybe you have tried it before, nothing happened, or maybe you have been curious, but did not know where to start. Well, in this video, I am going to walk you through the complete process of growing grapes from seed, covering everything from selecting the right seeds all the way through the first 3 months of growth. Plus, stick around to the end where I will show you exactly how to save and store grape seeds so you always have a supply ready for future plantings. Let us get into it. Growing grapes from seed is one of the most rewarding projects you can take on as a gardener. There is something almost magical about watching a tiny seed transform into a vigorous vine that could one day produce clusters of fruit. And the good news is that while it does require some patience and a few specific steps, it is absolutely achievable. Once you understand what grape seeds need to germinate and how to care for those delicate seedlings, you will be well on your way to growing your own grapevines. So let us start by understanding a few important things about grape seeds. Before we dive into the actual process, I want to talk about what you are working with when you grow grapes from seed, because this is going to set your expectations and help you understand why we do certain things along the way. First, grape seeds need a period of cold before they will germinate. In nature, a grape falls to the ground in late summer or fall. The seeds sit through the cold winter months, and then they sprout in spring when conditions are right. This cold period is called stratification, and it is absolutely essential. If you just plant a fresh grape seed in soil without that cold treatment, chances are it will just sit there and do nothing. The seed is waiting for winter to pass, and we have to trick it into thinking that has happened. Now here is something else you should know. When you grow grapes from seed, you are not going to get an exact copy of the grape you ate. Grapes are like apples in this way. The seeds contain genetics from 2 parent plants, so your seedling will be unique. It might produce grapes that are similar to the parent, or they might be quite different in size, color, or flavor. This is actually part of the fun for many gardeners. You are essentially creating a new variety. But if you want an exact replica of a specific grape, you would need to grow from cuttings, not seeds. For our purposes, though, growing from seed is a wonderful adventure, and many gardeners have gotten excellent fruit from seed-grown vines. Just keep in mind that it can take 3 to 5 years before a seed-grown vine produces its first grapes, so this is definitely a long-term project. But those first 3 months of growth that we are focusing on today, that is where it all begins. Let us talk about selecting and preparing your grape seeds. Now you have a couple options here. You can buy grape seeds from a seed supplier, which gives you a known variety, or you can harvest seeds from grapes you have eaten, which is what most people do, and honestly, what I find most satisfying. If you are harvesting from store-bought or homegrown grapes, here is what you want to look for. Choose grapes that are fully ripe, not underripe. Seeds from underripe grapes have lower germination rates because they have not fully developed yet. You want grapes that are at peak ripeness or even slightly past their prime. Also, look for seeded grape varieties. I know that sounds obvious, but so many grapes these days are seedless, and while seedless grapes do sometimes contain small, underdeveloped seeds, they rarely germinate well. Your best bet is to find seeded varieties like Concord, Muscadine, or any of the wine grape varieties if you can get your hands on them. Once you have your grapes, cut them open and remove the seeds. You will notice they have a bit of pulp clinging to them, and you need to get that off. What I do is put the seeds in a small bowl of water and gently rub them between my fingers to remove the flesh. Any pulp left on the seed can cause mold problems later, so take your time with this step. After cleaning, here is a little test you can do. Drop your seeds in a glass of water and let them sit for about 15 minutes. Seeds that sink are generally viable, while seeds that float are often empty or not fully developed. It is not a perfect test, but it helps you weed out the duds. I usually start with more seeds than I think I need, because not every seed will germinate. If you want 10 seedlings, I would start with at least 20 or 30 seeds, to account for the ones that will not make it. Now for the drying step. After cleaning, lay your seeds out on a paper towel and let them dry for a day or two. You do not want to store wet seeds because they will mold. Once they are dry, you are ready to move on to cold stratification, which is really the key to the whole process. All right, let us talk about cold stratification, and I want you to really understand this step because it is where most people go wrong when trying to grow grapes from seed. Like I mentioned earlier, grape seeds have a built-in dormancy. They are programmed to wait through winter before sprouting, and cold stratification is how we simulate that winter period. Without it, your seeds simply will not know it is time to wake up. Here is exactly how I do it. Take your cleaned, dried seeds and place them in a damp paper towel. Not soaking wet, just damp. Then fold that paper towel up and slip it into a plastic Ziploc bag. Squeeze out most of the air and seal it up. You want some moisture in there, but you do not want the seeds sitting in water. Now, and this is important, place that bag in your refrigerator, not your freezer. The freezer is too cold and can damage the seeds. Your regular refrigerator, which typically runs around 35 to 40 degrees Fahrenheit, is perfect. This mimics the cold, moist conditions of winter soil. How long do you leave them in there? For most grape varieties, you want to stratify for 2 to 3 months. I usually go the full 3 months because I have found it gives me better germination rates. Mark your calendar or set a reminder on your phone, because you are going to want to check on those seeds every couple of weeks. Open the bag, make sure the paper towel is still damp, and look for any signs of mold. If you see mold starting to form, you can rinse the seeds gently and put them in a fresh, damp paper towel. Good air circulation when you open the bag helps prevent mold issues too. Now here is something that surprises some people. Toward the end of that stratification period, you might actually see some seeds starting to crack open, or even sending out a tiny root while they are still in the refrigerator. That is perfectly normal and actually a great sign. It means those seeds are ready to go. When you see that happening, you know it is time to move to the next step. But even if your seeds have not started sprouting in the fridge, after that 2 to 3 month period, they should be ready for planting. The cold treatment has done its job and broken the dormancy. One more tip on stratification. Keep your seeds away from fruits and vegetables in the refrigerator, especially apples and bananas. These produce ethylene gas as they ripen, and that gas can actually interfere with seed dormancy and germination. I keep my stratifying seeds in the back corner of the fridge, away from the produce drawer. Now that your seeds have had their cold treatment, it is time to plant them and coax them into germination. This is where the excitement really starts, because you are about to see those first signs of life. For planting, I like to use small individual pots or cell trays rather than one big container. This makes it easier to care for each seedling individually and avoids disturbing roots when it is time to transplant later. 3-inch pots work wonderfully for this stage. For your growing medium, you want something that drains well, but holds some moisture. I use a high-quality seed starting mix, which is finer and lighter than regular potting soil. Grape seedlings have delicate roots in those early days, and a heavy soil can make it harder for them to push through and establish themselves. Fill your pots with the seed starting mix and moisten it before planting. You want it damp throughout, like a wrung-out sponge. Plant your seeds about 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch deep. I usually plant 2 seeds per pot, just in case one does not germinate, and then I thin to the strongest seedling later if both come up. Gently press the soil over the seeds and give them a light watering to settle everything in. Now, here is where patience comes in. Even after stratification, grape seeds can take 2 to 4 weeks. To germinate, sometimes even longer. Do not give up on them too quickly. For germination, warmth is your friend. Grape seeds germinate best when the soil temperature is between 70 and 75 degrees Fahrenheit. If your house runs cool, a seedling heat mat under your pots can make a big difference. I have had seeds that sat there doing nothing for weeks suddenly pop up once I added some bottom heat. Place your pots in a spot with bright indirect light. You do not need intense direct sunlight at this stage, but you do want good light so that when those seedlings emerge, they can start photosynthesizing right away. Keep the soil consistently moist, but not waterlogged during this germination phase. I like to cover my pots loosely with plastic wrap or a humidity dome to hold in moisture. Just make sure to remove the covering once you see green poking through the soil, because at that point, your seedlings need air circulation. And when that first little sprout emerges, curling up out of the soil with its seed leaves still tucked together, that is a moment worth celebrating. You have officially started a grapevine from seed. Once your grape seeds have germinated, you are entering the first month of true seedling care, and this stage is all about gentle nurturing. Those first leaves you see are called cotyledons, or seed leaves, and they look nothing like actual grape leaves. They are usually oval-shaped and smooth. These cotyledons are doing important work, though. They are feeding your tiny plant until it can grow its true leaves and start making its own energy through photosynthesis. Do not be alarmed by how small and fragile everything looks at this point. That is completely normal. Light becomes critical now. Your seedlings need plenty of bright light to grow strong and stocky. If you are growing near a sunny window, a south-facing window is ideal, giving you the most hours of light. But honestly, for the best results in these early weeks, I recommend using a grow light. Position it about 2 to 4 inches above your seedlings and run it for 14 to 16 hours a day. This prevents your seedlings from getting leggy, which is when they stretch tall and thin, trying to reach for inadequate light. Leggy seedlings are weak seedlings, and we want strong, compact growth from the start. Watering during this first month requires a gentle touch. The soil should stay consistently moist, but never soggy. Overwatering is one of the biggest killers of young seedlings because it leads to a problem called damping off, which I will talk more about in a bit. I water my grape seedlings from the bottom when possible, setting the pots in a tray of water and letting them wick up moisture for about 15 to 20 minutes, then removing them from the tray. This encourages roots to grow downward and helps keep the surface of the soil slightly drier, which reduces disease problems. Temperature matters too. Keep your seedlings in a spot where it stays, between 65 and 75 degrees Fahrenheit during the day. They can handle slightly cooler temperatures at night, down to about 60 degrees, but avoid cold drafts or placing them near air conditioning vents. Remember, grapes are originally from warm climates, and these babies are especially sensitive to cold at this young age. By the way, if you are finding this helpful so far, take a second to subscribe so you do not miss the rest of this series. All right, let us keep going. As you move into the second month of growth, things start to get really exciting. This is when you will see your grape seedlings develop their first true leaves, and these actually look like tiny grape leaves. They will have that characteristic lobe shape, maybe 3 lobes at first, and they might even have a slightly fuzzy texture. When you see true leaves forming, you know your seedling has graduated from relying on its seed leaves to making its own food. This is a big milestone. With true leaves comes increased water and nutrient demands. Your seedlings are now actively photosynthesizing and growing more rapidly. You may notice the soil drying out faster than before, so check moisture levels daily. Stick your finger about an inch into the soil, and if it feels dry at that depth, it is time to water. During this second month, I also start feeding my seedlings, but very gently. I use a liquid fertilizer diluted to 1/4 strength, applying it once a week. Seedlings can be burned by too much fertilizer, so less is more at this stage. You just want to give them a little boost, not overwhelm them. This second month is often when you will need to transplant your seedlings into larger containers. Once your seedling has 2 or 3 sets of true leaves and you can see roots starting to peek out of the drainage holes, it is time to move up to a bigger pot. I typically go from those 3-inch starting pots up to 6-inch pots at this stage. When transplanting, be very gentle with the roots. I like to water the seedling thoroughly an hour or two before transplanting, which helps the root ball hold together. Then I tip the pot, support the seedling by its leaves, not its stem, and ease the whole root ball out. Set it in the new pot at the same depth it was growing before. Fill around it with fresh potting mix and water it in well. After transplanting, your seedlings might look a little droopy for a day or two. That is just transplant shock and is completely normal. Keep them out of direct, harsh sunlight for a couple of days while they recover, and they should perk right back up. By the end of the second month, you should have seedlings that are several inches tall, with multiple sets of true leaves and a nice little root system establishing in their new pots. The third month of growth is when you really start to see your grape seedlings take off. The root system is now well established, the plant has plenty of leaf surface for photosynthesis, and growth becomes noticeably faster. You might be amazed at how quickly they put on new leaves during this period. This is also the month where you can start thinking about some early training if you want to encourage a strong main stem. What I do is let the seedling grow naturally until it reaches about 8 to 10 inches tall, and then I gently insert a small bamboo stake or wooden dowel next to it. I loosely tie the main stem to this stake with soft twine or a strip of old t-shirt. This encourages the plant to grow upward and start developing a strong central leader, which will eventually become the trunk of your vine. You do not want to tie it too tight, because the stem needs room to thicken, so leave some slack in that tie. During the third month, you can increase your fertilizer strength to half strength, still applying weekly. Your seedlings are hungry now and can handle more nutrition. You will also want to continue providing plenty of light. If you have been using grow lights, keep them running for those 14 to 16 hours. If you are growing near a window, make sure your plants are getting at least 6 to 8 hours of bright light daily. Now, if you are growing your seedlings in late spring or early summer and outdoor temperatures are consistently above 60 degrees Fahrenheit, you can start thinking about hardening off your seedlings. Hardening off is the process of gradually acclimating indoor-grown plants to outdoor conditions. You do not want to just take a seedling that has been coddled indoors and plop it outside in full sun. That is a recipe for sunburn and stress. Instead, start by placing your seedlings outside in a shaded, protected spot for just a couple of hours the first day. Gradually increase their time outside and their exposure to direct sunlight over the course of 1 to 2 weeks. By the end of that hardening off period, they should be ready to handle full outdoor conditions. Let me talk about some common problems you might run into during these first 3 months and how to handle them. The number one issue with young grape seedlings is damping off. This is a fungal disease that attacks seedlings right at the soil line, causing them to collapse and die seemingly overnight. One day your seedling looks fine. The next day it is keeled over with a pinched, mushy stem at the base. Damping off thrives in wet, poorly ventilated conditions. To prevent it, avoid overwatering, use sterile seed starting mix. Provide good air circulation around your seedlings, and do not crowd your pots together. If you see damping off starting to affect some seedlings, remove the affected plants immediately and let the soil dry out a bit more between waterings for the remaining healthy ones. Leggy seedlings are another common problem, and like I mentioned earlier, this happens when seedlings do not get enough light. They stretch toward whatever light source they can find, resulting in tall, thin, weak stems. The solution is more light and getting it closer to the plants. If your seedlings are already leggy, you can bury the stem a bit deeper when you transplant to a larger pot, which will help stabilize them and encourage roots to form along the buried portion. Slow growth or seedlings that seem to stall out can happen for a few reasons. Check your temperature first, because cold conditions really slow grape seedlings down. Also, make sure you are fertilizing appropriately, as nutrient deficiency can cause stunted growth. Sometimes slow growth is just a matter of patience, though. Some grape varieties are naturally slower to establish than others. Finally, watch out for pests. Fungus gnats are common with indoor seedlings. Those are the tiny flies you see hovering around your pots. Their larvae can damage young roots. Letting the soil surface dry out between waterings helps control them, and yellow sticky traps catch the adults. Aphids can also show up on tender new growth. A gentle spray of water or a diluted soap solution takes care of minor infestations. Now for that bonus tip I promised you at the beginning, and this one is really going to set you up for future success. Let us talk about how to save and store grape seeds properly, so you always have a stash ready when you want to start more vines. Maybe you found a grape variety you absolutely love this season, and you want to try growing it next year. Here is exactly how to preserve those seeds. Start by cleaning your seeds thoroughly, just like we talked about earlier. Remove all the pulp and let them dry completely, which takes about 2 to 3 days in a single layer on a paper towel at room temperature. Once they are fully dry, this is important. You are going to store them in the refrigerator, but not loose. Place your dried seeds in a small paper envelope or fold them into a piece of paper towel. Then put that inside a sealed plastic bag or airtight container with a small packet of silica gel if you have one. The paper absorbs any residual moisture, while the sealed container protects from humidity swings in the fridge. Label your container with the grape variety if you know it and the date you collected the seeds. Properly stored grape seeds can remain viable for several years in the refrigerator, though germination rates do decline over time. I have had good success with seeds stored for 2 to 3 years using this method. When you are ready to plant them, simply take them out and begin the stratification process we covered earlier. You are essentially giving them their required cold period twice, once in storage and once before planting. But this does not hurt them at all. In fact, it ensures they are well and truly ready to germinate when conditions are right. So that is everything you need to know to grow grapes from seed through the first 3 months of growth. We covered selecting and cleaning your seeds, the critical cold stratification process, germination and planting, and caring for your seedlings through each stage of early development. If you found this helpful, make sure to subscribe and hit that bell icon so you will know when I post the next video on caring for your grape seedlings as they mature. And if you have any questions or want to share your own grape growing experiences, drop them in the comments below. I love hearing from you. Thanks so much for watching, and good luck growing your grapevines from seed.